Hello and welcome to Just Ride Bikes. In today's video, I'm going to share some quick fire product reviews, give my thoughts, pros and cons on some products and kit I've been using for the last few months and whether you should buy them or avoid them. So, coming up today, we have a helmet, front and rear lights, glasses, a saddlebag and a gravel tyre. So, without further ado, let's dive in. And let's start with a gravel tyre. These are the Hutchinson Touareg tyre that launched last year, and I rode these for about 6 months last summer and into the autumn, and then put them away for winter and dug them out recently from hibernation for the drier trails we now have in spring. So these being a really good tyre, a tyre that really impressed me, and there are lots and lots of choices in the gravel bike tyre market right now. But what I like about these tyres is how fast rolling they are, how they cope with a wide range of conditions apart from mud. They're durable, they're grippy, and they look good as well with the tan sidewall, but a black option is available as well. So they come in different widths, different wheel sizes as well. These are a 40 on a 700C, and they measure a true 40 on this 23mm internal rim width. You have a nice compact low profile tread pattern. So on harder surfaces, so tarmac, roads, or compacted gravel, these roll really quickly with very little noise. And the rounded shape gives you a nice transition over to shoulder blocks. So nice progressive feel in the corners. Some tyres are more squared off, and that can feel a bit sketchy when you lean the tyres over, but these feel really confidence inspiring in the corners. The tread compound is nice and grippy as well, and the 127 TPI construction gives a reasonably supple feel. They're not too firm at low pressures. They do follow the contours of the trail really well. So nice feeling tyre at low pressures. And touch wood, I didn't have a single puncture in over 6 months of riding, thanks to a puncture layer underneath the tread pattern. And as you can see, the wear rate has been fantastic as well. No cuts or chunks missing, and the sidewalls are in good condition as well. Got a nice kind of tough sidewall material as well. And when you run these at low pressures and you're bombing through roots and rocks, they are a rugged tyre and they can survive a lot of punishment. Now, as it says on the hot patch there, they are tubeless ready, and they went up just fine on these ME rims. And these have been in hibernation in my shed for the last few months, and they've lost a bit of air pressure, but they're still on. The bead hasn't come off. So I'll top up the sealant, inflate the tyre, get these back on the bike, and these do me for the spring and summer. The other benefit of these tyres is that they've been out for a few months now, and the prices are pretty good when you shop around online, and you can get them for up to half the retail price as well, making them a pretty good pick if you want a gravel tyre that's fast rolling. Now, compared to other gravel tyres, they're not as fast rolling as a Specialized Pathfinder, which has a really smooth, slick centre section, which is better for more road-based riding, especially commuting or hybrid riding. And they're not as outright grippy in slipperier or wetter conditions as a WTB Riddler or a Rattler. But if you want a fast rolling tyre for dry conditions, dry gravel and a bit of road, these I think are a really good option. Anyway, I'll put a link to them down below. Definitely a good tyre, and going back on my Fairlight for the spring and summer. Next up, we have the Scott Pro Shield glasses that you might have seen me wearing in a few videos recently. Got a few comments on these, and these I like a lot, but there's one thing I'm not so keen on, which I'll talk about in a moment. So there's real fashion in pro cycling at the moment and amateur cycling for very big shades. Love or hate it, it's a real trend, but the benefit when you're riding, especially in an aggressive position and on the drops, is the frame is really high. There's no obstruction to your field of vision, so you don't have that frame obscuring where you're going compared to old-fashioned shades. So that when you're wearing them, it's a real benefit. Although I will admit they look a bit dorkish when I'm wearing them. But these at least match my HJC helmet, and other colours and lens colours are available as well. They're nice and lightweight, fairly durable as well. I took them to Nice recently and dropped them a few times, and they survived just fine. Arms fold away for storage. Got some ventilation at the sides there to reduce fogging, and I found on some of the big mountains I was doing in France when I used these, that really helped to reduce fogging at lower speeds when the airflow isn't so good. Got a nice tacky, grippy nose piece as well. It's not adjustable or replaceable though, which is a bit of a shame. And they come in different colors and different lens types as well. The lenses, unfortunately, aren't replaceable, so you can't put a different lens in, which is a shame. Scott does offer other models that you can do that on. And the lens I have here, which I'll try and show you on camera, is a good high contrast lens for cloudy, overcast days. Not amazing in super bright sunlight when you want a darker tinted lens. But the one thing that puts me off really recommending them as much as I want to is the arm design. And as you can see, the arms bend down and they hook around the back of the ears. Now they do stay in place fairly well, not as secure as other glasses I've ridden with. And there is some issue with certain helmets and the retention system. And on some longer 5-6 hour rides, you get a bit of discomfort around the back of the ear. But they don't really work as well as something like the Oakley design, which uses a very different arm design. So they're straight, and these rely on a bit of tension gripping the temples, the back of your head. And I find this design, this approach works much better. It keeps the glasses in place more securely, so there's less movement, there's less issue with retention, there's no discomfort around the back of the ear. So that's the only blemish on these shades. The arm design isn't my preference compared to these. It does work, just doesn't work as well as it could do in my opinion. And then there's a price. They're £100, which is definitely pretty spendy, but they are cheaper than Oakley's or 100% or Rafa or other high-end glasses, POC as well. But you can definitely get it cheaper. But considering they're quite a bit cheaper than those other mainstream brands, I think they offer a compelling choice. Worth trying them in a shop if you can to see if this arm design works for you and they fit you, because fit is subjective. They might not fit you in a way they fit me. But definitely worth looking at a bit more closely if you want something a bit different, and definitely a good looking pair of glasses. So I'll put links to those down below. Next up, we have an essential for all road and gravel bikes, and that's a saddlebag. And I've tested loads and loads of saddlebags over the years, and you wouldn't believe how much of a difference there is between good bags and poor bags. This is a new product from 76 Projects, a UK based company. You might have seen this on several bikes in recent videos. I've been using it for the last 3 to 4 months, and I've been really impressed with it. And it comes in 2 sizes, and this is the bigger of the 2 sizes. And inside there's loads of space for several inner tubes, a CO2 canister, tyre levers. I put some spare contact lenses in there as well, other bits and bobs you might want to fit. There is a smaller version if you want a racier look, but I think this is a good setup. As you can see, I haven't quite filled it. And then to attach it to the saddle rails, you have a large, big, wide, generous Velcro strap. And that works really well over saddle rails, and it secures it in place really well. There's no issue of it rattling around, coming loose or falling off. And I've ridden this on road bikes and gravel bikes, and it's been just fine, which is why it's a bit muddy, as you can see there. We've got a waterproof zip as well, which still works well after several months using. That can be an area of failure on some cheaper saddlebags. So it's just really good, no nonsense, easy to recommend a saddlebag. Now the price is a bit higher than some cheaper saddlebags. It's not as affordable as a Topeak or a Lezyne perhaps. But in my experience, some of the cheap saddlebags have too many straps and the design is too complex. They don't actually work that well. Whereas the simplicity of this does work very well. And it's similar to a Castelli saddlebag, but they're quite a bit more expensive than this. And it's a British company, nice to support a local company where you can as well. So that's a really good saddlebag, and that'll be on my bag for the rest of the year. And yeah, really like that. So link to that down below. Next up, we have some lights. And I know it's not really light season for a lot of people, but it's still dark in the mornings and it's still dark in the evenings. And if you're doing bike packing adventures or you're doing mountain bike night ride, you might want a decent set of lights. And lights can be expensive, although prices have dropped a lot over the last 10 years thanks to advances in LED technology. But these from Magicshine or Magicshine are a really good offering. You get lots of brightness for not a lot of money compared to more well-known brands in this space like exposure lights, for example. So let's start with a front light, and this offers a whopping 3,000 lumens. So that's a great light for mountain biking, for gravel riding in the woods, and definitely overkill for a road bike, but you can drop it down to the medium or lower setting and get extra run time without using all that brightness from the 2 LEDs on the front. I like the fact it's an all-in-one design, so the LEDs at the front, the battery in the middle, and a USB-C charging port at the back there, and a power light to cycle through different modes, and also serve as a battery runtime indicator, all in one clean unit there. Runtime is from 2 hours to 62 hours, depending on the modes. You've got steady modes and flash modes, so plenty of choice. And we have a memory function, so when you turn it on, it goes back to the last mode you used, the last time you used the light on your bike. So that's a neat feature. Now, all sounds good so far, but the downside comes with the clamp. So on a surface, it looks very simple. Nice, easy to use clamp, goes around handlebar, adjustable for different size handlebars, and we have a quarter turn Garmin style mount there. So that works fine. Now the issue is that's quite a small clamp and quite a heavy light. And in my testing, especially off-road on a gravel bike or a mountain bike, this bracket isn't sturdy enough to hold the quite considerable weight of this light securely in place. And I found over those rough surfaces, the front light would jiggle around a bit and the beam pattern would just move around a bit. And you can get used to it, but to be honest, it's pretty annoying with the beam bouncing around. And especially a big impact or pothole or cobbles, it really does flap around quite a bit, even with the bracket done as tight as I dare on handlebars. So that is a bit of an issue. Now the other issue is that despite it having a whopping 3,000 lumens, which sounds amazing, the beam pattern doesn't have enough reach, enough depth for when you're riding at high speeds. It's a fairly round beam pattern, but it's quite a distinct fall off at the edges, and I want a bit more kind of depth, a bit more reach for high speeds. So I don't think the beam pattern has been optimized for high speed riding as much as it could. Now on a mountain bike or a gravel bike in the woods at lower speeds in a single track, it's okay. But when you're blatting along the road or gravel trail, that reach isn't quite sufficient. And it's a bit of a shame really, because you do have the brightness, the punch, but it's not quite utilized as well as it could do. So very nearly there. The price and the features makes it easy to recommend, but for me the bracket is a bit of a shame really. It doesn't quite live up to the promise that the rest of the light delivers. Now the rear light is a bit easier to recommend. So for a small unit, we have a whopping 200 lumens in here, so very bright, definitely up there with the brightest from the likes of Exposure. Power button on the top there. And a neat feature of this is we have not only the rear facing LED light, but one on the bottom that casts a big light over the road as well. That, added to the fact it's a smart light, so it can detect your braking and then increase the brightness. It can detect other road users and can automatically adjust to different light conditions. Means it's a really good light for different conditions, different road conditions, trail conditions as well. And when you see it in action, it really does work, especially when you're slowing down, it gets brighter. That's a really neat feature. And the bracket is very simple, one of these rubber band jobbies, so goes around any seat post, nice rubber mounts there, put it around there, and it stays on place and it doesn't rattle or fall off. The only shame on this is we have a micro USB charging port there, rather than the USB-C you get on the front light. So different cables, but the cable come in the box, so at least that's okay. But generally, a pretty good rear light and easier to recommend than the front light. And finally, as many of you know here on the channel, I love a bit of mountain biking, and this is a brand new mountain bike helmet from Specialized. It's the Ambush 2, an update on the original helmet, and what a funky looking helmet that is. Doesn't that look distinctive? Definitely. So this is a helmet aimed at kind of trail, enduro, aggro mountain bike riding, where the chance of risk of crashing is higher. So we have much lower side and a back section to give you more protection around the back of your neck and skull for that sort of riding where crashes have a bigger consequence. Hopefully, touch wood, I won't test that for myself. So firstly, the fit, which is really important with a helmet. You've got to fit correctly to do its job properly. And fit is subjective. We have different size and shape heads, but I must have a specialized shaped head because it works for me really well. So inside, lots of foam padding. We have their own MIPS SL linings, so extra safety protection there. A lightweight cradle and an easy adjustable dial there. I find the fit is perfect. Put it on, a few turns of the dial, and it stays in place. No moving around, just a really good fit, and nice lightweight webbing straps there as well. So the fit is fantastic. Then on the outside, on this helmet over the old version, they worked on the ventilation. Now here in the UK, it's not been super hot, but we had a heat wave 2 weeks ago, and it hit a heady 18 degrees. I know, can you believe it? So I was able to test some ventilation off this helmet in those warmer temperatures, and at high speeds, the bigger vents across the top and around the back do make it a cooler helmet than the old version, and compares very well to a lightweight trail cross-country lid with much more ventilation than a bigger, more rugged helmet that this one is. At lower speeds though, the ventilation isn't so good because you rely on airflow. And another really nice change is they've added ports on the front for stashing your eyewear. So when you're climbing, you've got sweat pouring on your face, you want to take your glasses off and put them in your helmet. But with these enduro helmets, it's often quite tricky. But they've got two very clever ports on the side. It works best with straight arm glasses like these Oakleys. And you push them in the side there. And I've got little rubber flaps in there to stop them falling out. So you can see that it's really, really secure in place. That's not going anywhere. So that's a really neat feature, and that's great for enduro riding, which this helmet is aimed at. So you've got those timed climbing stages. Put the glasses in the top there, keep them clean, sweat-free for that downhill stage. It's a really neat feature. It's actually quite tricky to pull out. There we go. So it's a really smart helmet. It does look a bit odd. I'm not so down with the looks of it. This all black colorway does help, of course, but it is a bit Robocop-esque around the back, isn't it? But when you're wearing it, you can't see it, and it's protection that matters. Now, talking of protection, I haven't tested it myself because, well, I don't want to risk my noggin, but the Virginia Tech, an independent test over in the US by a university, gave us a 5-star rating, and I'll put a link to that down below. So that's a real nice bit of reassurance that it tested real well in that independent test. So that's a nice thing to know. Now, the one thing I dislike about the helmet personally is the peak isn't adjustable. I mean, I can see why I fixed it, but personally I prefer a peak you can adjust for riding in different conditions. If the sun is really high or really low, you can adjust the peak to protect your eyes from the sun. But it's fixed, and that does limit its usefulness quite a bit, really. So quite a pricey helmet. There is a new cheaper camber helmet which has a similar design, less deep around the sides. So that might be worth considering if you want this type of helmet but at a lower price point. But if you want a really good enduro free ride aggro trail helmet, down country perhaps, then this is a good option. Quite dark colorway. There are other colorways available. You want a bit more color. So that's been a roundup of some products I've been using for the last few months and my real world thoughts, pros and cons, and whether they're any good or not. And I'll put links to all these products down below. And if you do click on those links, I might earn a small commission from those. And it will help support the channel, of course, as well. Let me know what you think of this format and what products you want me to test as well. And coming up in the next episode, hopefully, I'll have time to ride these brand new Michelin Power Cup tyres, which just arrived the other day. These are the Inichi ones, and they claim to be as fast, as good as a Continental GP 5000, which is quite some claim indeed. So those coming up fairly soon. Anyway, that's all for now. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well. And I'll see you all again very soon.